In this crazy world, I think there's one thing we can all agree on, and that is that films or books or music or really any kind of art form can help us deal with the trauma that we or others may be experiencing. And that's the topic of today's episode of The Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. This is my closet full of all the stuff that I love. And today we're going to look at two very different films that deal with the same topic of dementia, something which my mother suffered from and that my siblings and I had to learn how to deal with and understand. Let's check out how these films do it. And at the end, a quote of the day. The first film I want to talk about dealing with dementia is The Father. This is from 2020, and it was directed by Florian Zeller. It was his first film, and based on his play, he co-wrote the screenplay with Christopher Hampton, who wrote a film I really liked a lot called Atonement, and it won the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay, The Father did. And the cast includes Anthony Hopkins, who won the Oscar for Best Actor. This was his second Best Actor Oscar. He previously won for The Silence of the Lambs. His co-star is Olivia Colman. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She did not win, but she did win Best Actress for the film The Favorite. The Father is about a man who is suffering from dementia, and his daughter is trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with him and to lead her own life at the same time. Dementia, just to be clear, is a general term for decline in mental ability that's severe enough to interfere with your daily, everyday life. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. It's a specific disease. Dementia is not. So dementia is more of an umbrella term, I think. Now, what I expected was this was going to be a straightforward film about a man who is suffering from dementia. It's going to have the usual cliches, and it's going to be a tearjerker and all that kind of stuff. You know, stuff that really doesn't appeal to me that much. I was totally wrong, because it was completely different from what I expected. And I was really glad that I knew zero about it going into it, because I was very surprised on the approach this film took. Now, The Father gets a lot of things right when it comes to what people with dementia are experiencing. When I first found out my mother was experiencing dementia, I did a little bit of research on it to try to understand it. And the film The Father does get a lot of things right. For example, the confusion and disorientation the person feels, an obsession with time. My mom would always ask, what time it was, sometimes every 2 or 3 minutes, and really didn't have a concept of how much time was passing. An obsession with someone is stealing from you, because they forget where they're putting things, so they assume someone is stealing kind of in a paranoid way. Difficulty getting dressed or even not getting dressed for the entire day. Sometimes pretending you know what's happening or what people are saying when you really don't. And then as far as the son or the daughter goes, in this case the daughter, trying to figure out what's best for while you're still having your own life to lead, and figuring out what's best for your parents and for yourself at the same time. So this takes a really brilliant approach, and I'm going to give you a spoiler alert right now, in case you're like me and you like to go into things fresh and not know too much about these things. So you might want to fast forward to the next film I'm discussing if you don't want to know too much about what they do here. Because what they do is, as you're watching this film, you as the viewer, you're also becoming disoriented and confused. You're experiencing what the main character is experiencing, but in an objective way. You're not seeing it from his point of view, really. It's just an objective view of what is happening, and you get the feeling of being disoriented and confused, and you're trying to figure out what's happening, just like the main character is in here. How does the director do this? Well, the whole film takes place basically in one flat in London, but subtle changes are made in different parts of the film. For example, some furniture might move, or some furniture might be gone, some paintings might be gone, some of the colors on the wall, for example, might change. And so you're feeling confused, just like the Anthony Hopkins character is feeling confused. In addition, different actors come in to play the same roles. So a woman will walk in and it'll be the same character, the daughter of Anthony Hopkins' character, but it's a different actress playing her. So he's confused. Who are you? And at home, we're watching it and we're thinking, why is it a different actress? So that adds to the confusion. And then there's some plot points that change as well. For example, in one point, the daughter says she's moving to Paris. At another point, she says, what are you talking about? I never said I was moving to Paris. At one point, she's married. At another point, she's divorced. And he's confused and we're confused. So, I watched this the second time, figuring, okay, the second time I'll understand the chronology of what's happening. I'll understand the puzzle and how the pieces fit together. Didn't work that way. And it turns out that's not the point at all. The point is not to try to figure it all out. The point is to experience the feeling of dementia, just like the main character is. And to that end, it's a really successful film. The second film I want to talk about is Relic. It's also from 2020, and just like The Father, it deals with an elderly parent who has dementia. In this case, it's the mother. It's in one main location, the mother's house. It's a small cast, mainly 3 people in the cast, and it's also a little disorienting for the viewer, but in a much different way. The director is Natalie Erica James. She also co-wrote the script. I've not heard of her. The cast includes Emily Mortimer as the daughter. I remember her only from the series The Newsroom. And Relic is about a woman and her daughter. They get a call that the grandma has been missing for about 3 days. And so they go to her house to try to find her. They do find her, and it turns out she is suffering from dementia, and they need to deal with that. So this also gets a lot of things right about dementia. The whole issue of someone is stealing, the grandmother's reluctance to leave her home. At one point she says, "This house is all I have left, all my memories." Then the whole issue of what do you do as the son or daughter? Do you move your parents somewhere else? And in fact, the daughter even goes on a tour of retirement homes, which is something I did and my siblings did. And also the grandmother leaves post-it note reminders to herself around the house, such as take pills, flush, turn off tap, and where is everyone? And that was something my mom would always ask, where is so-and-so? Where is so-and-so? She'd call my sister, ask her where she was all the time. So how is a Relic different from The Father? Well, it's very different. It takes the form of a horror film, but not really a typical horror film. What it does is, instead of a monster, dementia is the monster. It's the insidious evil force that's taking over the house. And it does have some creepy and disturbing moments, like a horror film will. The ending is very interesting, and again, I'm going to issue a spoiler alert in case you don't want to know any more about this film, so you can fast forward to my closing remarks. So grandmother is changing physically. She gets a small bruise on her chest, and throughout the film that bruise is growing and growing, and her skin starts to deteriorate. And at one point near the end, she attacks her daughter and her granddaughter. I think she's just frustrated and scared, and the daughter's ready to leave, and the grandmother's laying there on the ground, her skin just ready to come off. And then the daughter sees a post-it note on the ground that says, "I am loved." Well, that changes her mind. She takes the grandmother very delicately, sits her on the bed, sits next to her, and starts to peel away her skin. Now, it's not like a gross thing, really. It's not a lot of blood coming out or bones or anything like that. It's kind of hard to describe. It's more like this discolored shell of the grandmother is still there. But it's done with great sensitivity, believe it or not. I know it sounds odd, and very emotionally and very sympathetically. And the grandmother's even holding the daughter's hand as she peels away her skin, and all that's left is a shell. And I can relate to that because, You know, when my mom, near the end, it was like a shell of her. She didn't look the same. She didn't act the same or move the same. And it was really, she wasn't the person she used to be. And I think that's what this film is doing, and in a very interesting way, in a horror film kind of context. And then at the end, the grandmother, the daughter, and her daughter are lying in the bed quietly, and the daughter, the youngest one, looks at her mother and she sees a small little bruise showing up on her back, showing that, oh, this is, you know, kind of the fate of a lot of people, especially if it runs in the family. So it's a very haunting, disturbing, but also in a strange way touching thing for especially for a horror film. So I wanted to end again with a quote of the day, and this is from film critic Roger Ebert once again. He said, "For me, movies are like a machine that generates empathy." And he's talking about empathy for many things, not just for people with dementia, but various issues and trauma in their life. And I agree with that statement. So what are on these discs and where can you see them? Well, let's talk about The Father. The Father has just a couple of short features. They're a little less than 10 minutes each, making of features and background information on the film. One thing that always bugs me about some of these making of features, even though I like the ones on here, is that you see the director talking to the actors, but you can never hear what the director's telling them. I think maybe it's too personal, or they don't want to lose the magic, whatever it is. But one day I'd like to hear, what is the director saying to the actors, and how's the actor responding? Anyways, you can rent this. You can buy this. It's not streaming yet as far as I can tell. I think because it got so much notice, it probably will be streaming on Amazon or Netflix, probably sometime in the future. As far as the Relic goes, this has really no extra features, even though it is a Scream Factory disc, and they usually put a couple extra things on there. So it's just a trailer. You can rent or buy this, of course, and it's also showing on Showtime. Now, The Father is going to appeal to more people. It's a easier one to recommend. It's a superior film, but I do appreciate how Relic takes a situation like Dementia and wraps it up in sort of a horror film disguise in a way. Hope you like this video. Feel free to leave a comment or a suggestion at the bottom. Feel free to leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. Share this with your friends and neighbors. Otherwise, I thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.